Hey, Dan, greetings and salutations. This is the day after the great deer hunt. Just heading home from Keith and Virginia's this Monday morning. I wish I had more pictures and video, but what I have found is that it's really hard to shoot video and shoot deer at the same time. So I came out Friday night. Friday night was the first time I was able to get out. And that's when, God, I was only an hour into it. And so when I say I came out, it means I came out for evening stand, which means here sunset right now is about 4:45, and you can hunt for about 30 minutes after sundown. But honestly, 15 minutes is about all you really have because you can't see anything after that, especially on a gloomy day. And it has been tenebrific to the max around here. Anyway, so I went out about 2:30, and by about 3:20 is when I saw that big like 8 or 10 point buck. And it was maybe, I don't know, 50 yards away, maybe 60 yards away. And I shot and I missed. I was using Colleen's 20 gauge shotgun, which is not a semi-automatic. So every time you shoot, you got to pump. And there's also a release on the pump. So you got to release the pump in order to rack the slide. Anyway, I shot, I missed, I shot again when it was well over 100 yards away, and I missed. At least I think I missed. I went down to look for blood and I didn't see any. Anyway, sat out there for another hour and didn't see anything more that day. Went out again Saturday evening, and I saw another buck come through. Now this one was right down at this little water, right where a spring comes out of the hillside, right down by the creek. I don't know if you remember that is right behind Keith and Virginia's house. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it saw me through that camouflage netting because it kept looking my way, and it was just something about that whole deer stand and that camouflage netting that was really bothering that buck. Now granted, the buck I think was only 3 points, so it wasn't enough to shoot anyway. But it kept, looking down and then looking up right at me. And so finally I decided to try to move and to see if I could get a closer look at it with the binoculars. And it definitely saw something, and it took off and barked the whole way. If you've ever heard a buck bark, it's like a harsh coughing. So as it bounded away through the woods, it barked its warning to all the other deer. I didn't see anything more that day, so I went out Sunday morning. I don't think I saw anything Sunday morning, and then Sunday evening yesterday I was out, and the first thing that came through about 3:30 was a fawn. It was a wee little thing. It was by itself, which tells me his mother's probably been shot. And it was a little far away, and I wasn't willing to risk it just for a little fawn, so I let that thing go. And then at about 4:30, maybe a little later than that, this buck comes through and is directly on the other side of the creek from me, and presenting its whole flank, which is awesome. And so I shot. It went anyway. So I shot at it. And I wasn't sure. I hit it. I racked the slide immediately, and the second shot misfired, which is like great shotgun. I think I'm gonna have to go back to using Glenn's shotgun, which at least is a semi-automatic. Anyway, so I went and looked for blood sign, and didn't see anything right where I shot it, which surprised me. So I thought, well, I'll follow it, and it looked, it kind of ran this sort of erratic, funky run. So I thought for sure I must have hit it, must have hit it, and walked maybe 20 feet, and there was a big, not pool, there was some drops of blood, then a big pool of blood. So I knew I had hit it somewhere vital, I just followed the blood up kind of around the corner, around this little, knob of a hill, and found it lying dead. So it got maybe 150 yards, maybe 200. And I had hit it right behind the left shoulder. It went through the chest cavity, out the right side of the chest, and through the right leg, which is why it was running so funny, because it broke his right leg. And it's amazing how far they can run, even after you shoot them, you know, pretty central. What I thought was a doe when I shot at it actually turned out to be a buck. And I'm very lucky because it was just barely a legal buck. And I think I've talked about this before, but in this part of, in all of Minnesota, no, just down here, a buck has to have at least 4 points on one side. So that's how they evaluate it. Anyway, and this just barely had 4 points. So, but it was big. It was heavier than I am. So I was able to grab it by its antlers and drag it kind of down to the creek. But then I thought, well, I'm going to have to I went and got a rope from Keith of Virginia's, came all the way back down, tied it up around the antlers and the head and the shoulders, and drug it up and over the hill that the deer stand sits on, and back down into that little trail that Keith has cut that comes right from the back of the house all the way down to the creek, and couldn't get more than 10 feet. And I was just whipped, and it's like, God, I can't get this thing. So I thought, well, I'll get Keith's tractor. So I start the tractor up and I back down the hill, and the ground seemed like it was dry and frozen enough. So even though it was 40 degrees yesterday, so I back down the hill, hook it up, and I get the tractor stuck. The left wheel's spinning, the right wheel's not moving, and it's just like, great. I'm not sure if I'm in 4-wheel drive. Now at this point it's completely dark. And so I end up having to call Marshall. He comes out, and then we both drag this thing up. And I tell you, it was about all we could do to get this friggin' deer up the hill. And so I think we had to rest twice just going up the hill. I mean, it's a long hill. What is that? 200 yards, maybe 300, maybe 200. And and it's steep. So anyway, so we got it up. We threw all the outside lights on. I gutted it out there. Then we threw all the massive amount of gut pile into the burn barrel so that the dogs didn't get to it, and then took it up to the deer processor. And so that was actually really really handy. In fact, I'm going to show you what I took it to the deer processor with, because this is something new to us that I haven't shown you. I'm almost home, so as soon as I get there, I'll show you. But Beth had to come with me, because at this point I was already an hour later than I had called the processor and told him I was on my way. And so Beth went with me and registered the deer on the way up, and which was actually good that she was there, as gruesome as as an abattoir can be. She got to actually tell them, let's have some ground venison. We'll mix, and then they had an option of mixing beef tallow in with it, which she opted for. And we also got some hot dogs made, which I'm anxious to see how these taste, if they taste like regular hot dogs, or if they really taste gamey like venison dogs. Anyway, I'll let you know. And then I got some summer sausage made as well, which is what I've always had. Anyway, it was, I saw a remarkable number of deer, given the fact that I was only out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And as well, when I went out the previous weekend, when I walked down to put the camouflage netting up around the deer stand, I came up on 2 deer who were at that same watering hole, and they, it was like a buck and a doe, and they took off. And then the next, 2 days later, I came down to do some more work on it, and 2 more deer ran away. So clearly that is a honey hole for deer right now. Yeah, so it was a good hunt. I didn't freeze my butt off too badly, but I tell you, it's been so cold here that the small lake is already frozen over. LeCaine already has a skim of ice over the whole thing, and the big lake is 2/3 of the way frozen. So yeah, it's been really cold, man. So anyway, I'm home, so let me show you what I was talking about. So, you know, Preston's going to be driving soon, so we needed another vehicle. So this is what we got. It is a 2000 Chevy S10. It was actually Jim and Carol's truck. And, you know, it's got tons of rust on it. You can see over there where I actually sprayed expandable foam in the giant rust hole. Obviously this is what's left of the deer, at least in my vehicle. So it was actually really handy carrying the deer in this thing. So it's got about 115,000 miles on it. And Jim was selling it because you can see over there that white truck in his driveway. He bought that from Bill, who bought a new truck. So Bill sold his truck to Jim, Jim sold his truck to me, and now, so this is what Preston will be driving as soon as he gets his license in February. It's front-wheel drive. The only problem is it does have a lot of rust underneath, and I already had to replace all the brake lines. And I'm not talking brake pads or rotors, I'm talking the lines, because I was at the high school waiting for Preston, and I pulled forward to go park and put the brakes on, and there were no brakes. How funny is that? I mean, literally no brakes. I had to what am I trying to say? Coast to a stop. So it was, I'm glad it was me driving it. And honestly, it was, I was going to be letting Preston drive home, so it could have been worse. We could have been on Highway 61 when it happened. Anyway, so here's what's left of the deer. There's some antlers. And they're actually, dogs love to chew on them, so they'll chew toys. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm glad, as always, you're supportive of my endeavors, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it.